Thank you, Max Clinton, for today's contingency. Agamemnon contingency, luchador. There are many things that can be deeply ingrained into a culture. Things like food, clothing, celebrations, and performances. I myself had the chance to see how different cultures around the world are in my years of travel before donning the cape and cowl. The art of mask wrestling is one such sport, one which, while originating in Europe, found its true popularity in Mexico. Though funny enough, this series takes place in South California. While just a student at the foremost world-renowned international school of Lucha, Ricochet, who is only 10 at this time, has shown incredible promise. Some of you may wonder how threatening a masked wrestler can be. And in truth, until you've been folded backwards or faced an infinite grapple combo, one cannot truly comprehend what they are up against. But even then, the abilities Ricochet and his classmates display are far beyond what one would find in a normal wrestling ring. A staple for many of the masked wrestlers in training, aside from their mask, is their signature move, which are far more than a simple attack or grapple combo. These signature moves, usually unique to the user, are activated by the call of their name, after which the wrestler's body will undergo a transformation. For example, in Ricochet's case, his iconic move, the pulverizing pinball, will warp his body into a sphere, after which he is capable of bouncing off other objects, using the momentum to strike opponents with quick and powerful attacks. And it's not all he has in his arsenal of attacks, as his list of signature moves is ever increasing. Moves such as spinning top and battling ball of chain. I believe many of these moves are created on the spot depending on the situation. Despite his age, Ricochet has proven himself an incredibly proficient wrestler, being one of the top wrestlers in his class and able to match strength with students several times his own size. But being able to defeat other middle schoolers wouldn't be enough to make him stand out. Fortunately, he's managed to face opponents that wouldn't just be beyond his weight class, but also more dangerous than even seasoned wrestlers could handle. This includes wrestlers such as Queen Voladora, an ancient mummy who had captured one of his friends, intent on getting revenge for a wrong done to her by one of her ancestors. And when not fighting ancient grudges, Ricochet can be found fighting Misterioso Grande. This entity is a dream demon who will challenge you in your sleep. Should he defeat you, he will claim your mask. Despite the dream realm being Misterioso Grande's domain, Ricochet was more than capable of fighting him on equal footing, defeating him not once, but twice. The second time being while Misterioso was in the real world. Though this still pales in comparison to his highest feat, being the defeat of El Malefico. However, this accomplishment cannot be attributed by his own strength alone, as not only did it require the help of his friends, but also a boost in power with the artifacts of Buenoness. Despite how powerful these artifacts are, I am excluding them for a few reasons. The first being that they choose who can wield them, meaning the user must be worthy of their power. They also follow the code of mask wrestling. In a situation where Ricochet goes rogue, I can assume he would turn against the code. As such, the Cape of Courage would no longer grant him power. That said, he is still a tough opponent, one who has had his body crushed and flattened on the regular, only to bounce back time and again for more. To create an effective contingency against him, I must delve into a theory I've developed. While I did my research on every wrestling match Ricochet had ever had, I've noticed two consistencies. The first being that every single feat I've mentioned happened in a wrestling ring. Now, some of you may consider this obvious. After all, he is a masked wrestler in training. Of course, his feats would primarily happen in the ring, but one would imagine that if someone can perform superhuman feats within the ring, that they would be equally as powerful outside of it. And yet all my research into it has actually given me the opposite result. You see, typical for many young school kids, Ricochet has had to deal with his fair share of bullies. But there is a stark contrast in his ability to deal with some of them. When it's a bully from his own school, Ricochet usually deals with them by challenging them to a wrestling match. In this scenario, Ricochet always comes out on top as the victor. But there are 3 recurring bullies that have antagonized him throughout his series. But the difference here is that they do not attend his school and are just normal kids. But despite this, they have managed to beat up Ricochet and his friends on a regular basis, neither of them being able to put up much of a fight against them. This bit of information has led me to believe that Ricochet's strength come directly from the ring, and he is unable to perform at the same level outside of it. But this is again just a theory, a wrestling theory if you will, and I cannot lean too heavily on this being the case, as there are factors that can work against it. For example, Ricochet's hometown seems to be modified to produce rings on command, meaning should he have the home field advantage, he could just announce a match on anyone he desires. There is also the possibility that Ricochet and his friends are intentionally refusing to fight back, possibly because street fights, or fights outside of the ring as a whole, go against the code of masked wrestling, which, if we're talking about someone who had abandoned said code, would mean he would no longer be holding himself back. But code or not, there seems to be one weakness all wrestlers share, and that is the very mask that they wear on their head. You see, to a masked wrestler, one's mask is their entire identity, and should it be removed, they are stripped of their honor. This has been seen working on many of the other wrestlers within Ricochet's town. Even the strongest of wrestlers will lose their will to fight the moment they are unmasked, their only actions being to do everything in their power to hide the shame of revealing their face. I have many means of which I could remove Ricochet's mask. As it's made of common materials, it would be a relatively simple task. If all possible, I'm hoping that I could use the threat alone to de-escalate Ricochet. You see, the concept of a masked wrestler turning evil isn't uncommon. Just look to his friend the Flea as an example. My hope is that if given an opportunity where his friends or family can talk to him, they could bring him back to the side of honor, family, tradition, and donuts. If you also have a character you wish for me to cover, or just want to support this channel, I'll have a link to my Ko-fi page. There will also be a Google Doc with the list of characters who have ever been done or already commissioned by others.